Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Democratic Club of Sunnyvale. We are here to talk about running for any kind of representative representation. You can be an elected official in so many ways, but not just elected officials. We're talking about leadership in general. We're talking about people stepping up and identifying that need. Boards and commissions, we have that pending right now, and even in your neighborhood or so many ways. So let's jump into it. We have a panel here, and the panel we are going to be looking over there. That's where everybody online sees us. Um, we know how we got here in terms of Fremont Union High School District. We've had, I think, 4 or 5 meetings that have either focused specifically on the FUHSD trustee area process or has kind of been an update within it. And I see right here we have Doug Kuntz, who was the CTAD chair. Thank you for joining us. So the MAP 5R, which was the one that was approved by the FUHSD board, was approved by the board and then also by the county commission. And now it's moving on to the register of voters. And then we will be running 2 brand new trustee areas in November. And one of those is up here in North Sunnyvale, where as long as records have been kept, we have never had a representative. And we also had the highest percentage of Hispanic, Latino students and families. And so for us here in the Democratic Club, where we value representation, and also for Sunnyvale for Equity and Education, and honestly, this whole region, this is a very exciting time. And for the board as well. I know that this has been a long time coming. So we're going to get started. I'm going to have the panelists please spend maybe about 4 minutes or so introducing yourselves, who you are, why you're here. So just 4 minutes. And yes, we're looking forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us today on this great Saturday. What a beautiful day. My name is Jose Magaña, and I serve as a trustee for Area 2 for the San Jose Unified Board of Education. I'm in the middle of my second term, and I'm proud to say I am the youngest elected board member in our 160-plus year history. My background as before running for office was that I was a kindergarten teacher and first grade teacher. So I've been a teacher, I've coached teachers, I've been in the nonprofit space. And talking about commissions, I got my start in education policy specifically on my library commission, where we eliminated late fees for children in the city through our library system. And I ran because I truly believe that representation and experience is important, that our stories are important. I am also the proud son of a teen mom. I am the proud son of a father who was impacted by the war on drugs and spent time incarcerated. And my story lives through the policy that I pass, that I push to implement, and also that we look to review. And so I'm really excited to speak to you all today, now not just as a board member, but also as a parent in the trustee area where I serve with my kids who attend the schools that I represent, but really excited to join you all today.
Thanks, Jose. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me this opportunity to be on this panel with some really great people. I'm Naomi Nakano Matsumoto. I'm a trustee and the current vice president of the Fremont Union High School District Board. We've had some interesting times this year. We're working on our superintendent's evaluation. It's like, oh, there's a lot of exceptional stuff or unprecedented stuff that we dealt with this year. But I am a social worker by profession, have always worked in social justice, have always had diversity, inclusion, belonging, and justice in the forefront of the work that I do. And so when my kids started school, I noticed that the representation on our school boards did not reflect the student population. And when we moved from San Jose to Sunnyvale, I unfortunately saw the same thing. And so that's why I chose to run. I think representation, oftentimes people see it as ethnic representation, but there are other ways that we need to represent, especially in the school district. As far as I know, we've had, and it's hard to tell, but LGBTQ plus representation, and uh, even faith-based representation. So we are currently, I guess, working through some issues as far as what's happening with the war in Gaza and how that's impacting our students. And so even those voices are silenced a lot because of fear. So we need to make sure that all students are safe. And anyway, that's why I'm serving. Thank you.
My name is Alyssa Cisneros. I am the council member for in Sunnyvale for District 2, which is downtown, basically El Camino to the train tracks, Wolf to Mountain View. And I was elected in 2020, and I am still surprised that that was the path I ended up taking. I've actually been working in and around politics since 2007, when I was just 20 years old, and I had a 18-month-old at home, and I needed a job, and there was a candidate who was hiring anyone, like didn't know experience, just show up, but nobody knew who he was. His name is Barack Obama. So he has a little bit more name recognition now. So I worked on his primary campaign, the general, and ended up moving over into different kinds of campaigning. Ended up starting to go to college. I'm a proud De Anza alum. A wonderful school where I'm sending my daughter next year, actually. And I was able to achieve higher education there, step back and worked as a community organizer during the time I was in college, and then was able to get a master's degree in public policy at Mills College in Oakland. So that was, going through that journey and understanding, and what ended up really moving me into politics was the realization that the reason why my life was so hard, that I was sitting in an office all day waiting to get food stamps, why I couldn't get affordable childcare, why I was spending over a third of my income on that, was not because I was not smart or capable, and the people who were also in that room were not smart and capable, but because there are systems in place that are designed to create winners and losers. And that is because the right people are not in the room making those decisions and putting their input in. And as soon as I realized that, shortly after I joined the Obama campaign, I was like, that's not okay. And I think I found what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I think I'm just going to do that. So the pandemic came, I was laid off from a consulting job, and I'd been doing education policy professionally. And after doing a stint with the ACLU in their education policy during grad school. And when I lost my job, I was living in my hometown of Sunnyvale, and there was an open district council seat right where I was living. And I thought, if I don't do this now, I will never do it. And I really feel like I'm ready, and that this is where I'm going to make the biggest difference. And it wasn't last year. And I ran, and that went real well, as evidenced by me being here today. And being an elected official is one of the most gratifying things I've ever experienced. And the reason why is because I am so privileged to see the things that I have done make people's lives tangibly better in my community. And there is nothing that feels better, and nothing that makes the hard parts, the parts that just really make you think, why am I doing this for $33,000 a year, worth it. And so I'm currently running for reelection for a second term. And so focusing on that, getting my daughter to college, and starting the cycle over again 2 months later. So got a lot happening. But when I was elected, I wanted to mention I was the first Latina ever elected to the Sunnyvale City Council. The last, only one other Latino ever elected, and he served 30 years ago. I was also the first openly queer person to be elected to that seat. So there have been many firsts on council since then. And I'm so excited to see what district elections can do for the Fremont, for the high school district. we're evidence. Things are going to change and people's lives will be better for it. And so all that fight, all that stuff, I mean, I'm really proud of my community for how they showed up and also for what we're going to do together. So that's why I'm here. I'm so grateful. And I look forward to this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hi, my name is Richard Mellinger. I am the council member for District 5, and these are some tough acts to follow. I ask for your grace and indulgence. So I moved to Sunnyvale, like a lot of our residents, about 13 years ago to get a job in tech. I have lived in North Sunnyvale, so north of the Caltrain tracks that entire time. And, in 2016, I had a really bad night. I think a lot of us did. And in the aftermath of that election, I had been complaining about how expensive it was to live here for years, pretty much the entire time I'd been up here. And I sat down and took stock and I said to myself, there's really not much I can do at the federal level. There's frankly really not much I could do at the state level, but at the local level, maybe I could get involved. And so I did. I started to get involved through Livable Sunnyvale, through the Democratic Club. In July of 2017, I went to my first council meeting to speak in favor of a new apartment building on El Camino. Construction on that finished, I think, a year or two ago. And after I gave my 3 minutes, 2 or 3 of the council members came up and asked me to get coffee. And a little light bulb went off in my head and said, okay. A few months after that, I was sitting in council chambers, and at the time there was a, let's say, somewhat eccentric member of council on the dais, and he made some comments that were impertinent and offensive, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And I was literally live tweeting this meeting when Twitter was still a thing. And I literally dropped my phone hearing those remarks. I looked at the person sitting next to me, who was Sue Cerrone, and said, "Did he really say that?" And she said, "Yes, he really said that." And I looked at her and I said, "I want his seat." I did not get it that year, and I did not get it in 2020. But as we switched to districts, living in North Sunnyvale and getting involved, right? I joined the board of Livable Sunnyvale. I joined the board of the Democratic Club. I also joined our Bicycle Pedestrian Commission. And starting to really engage with the community and see the legacy of underinvestment in North Sunnyvale, the legacy of a lack of representation. So my district, District 5, is roughly the Caltrain tracks to 101. It's the most heavily Latino population in the city, and it has a long legacy of underinvestment. You look at the condition of Fair Oaks in my district, and it's frankly disgraceful. You look at the sidewalk infrastructure, you look at all these sort of things that folks, frankly, south of El Camino take for granted. And in North Sunnyvale, they're in much worse shape, even now, even after, I'm going to say decades of conscious investment by past councils, right? So I ended up chairing Livable Sunnyvale. I ended up chairing our Bicycle Pedestrian Commission. And in 2022, after, being involved for, at that point, 5 years, I said, now's the time. The district seat was up and I ran and I won. And since then, what I've been working on council has been, trying to correct that legacy of underinvestment, trying to make sure that we are building enough housing as a city and that housing is built equitably. Because for a long time, Northern Sunnyvale, despite that legacy of underinvestment, has carried the bulk of the city's housing production. I'm okay with us building housing in North Sunnyvale. I want us to be building housing in North Sunnyvale, but everyone needs to be doing their part. And as we build that housing, we need to be making sure that we're making the investments to ensure that these communities are high opportunity communities and that we are correcting that legacy of underinvestment. So really excited to be here, really excited to talk about what it's like to serve, what it's like to run for office. And with that, I'm going to pass this back to Peggy. Oh, wait, I guess I don't have to.
We can't hear whoever's speaking right now. That mic's turned off for remote people.
Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So I just want to go over like the timing and talk about the structure, what we're going to talk about, and then give all the attention to you all. That is my council member, Richard Millinger, and we both understand many of the same issues of North Sunnyvale, and I appreciate you all being here. As you can see by our wide range, the diversity here on the board, and this these amazing stories, how you got there, why you're here, why you serve. So motivational, so inspirational. We're going to first spend about 20 minutes talking about what it is like to be an elected official. After that, so about 3 questions-ish. We won't probably have everybody talk at every question. And then we're going to move on to campaigning, or I'm sorry, to why we need good people, why we need diversity, why we need a whole range of what that means. And then finally, the last section is going to be about campaigning. There's some psychological aspects of campaigning. We know that it's a very different beast than actually serving, and I have some trepidation here myself. And also, once you're in office, making a difference. Okay, so Richard, can you tell us a little bit about what is your role? What do you do? Like, what's a typical month look like for you?
What's a typical month look like for me? Well, so Sunnyvale City Council is part-time. And what that means is I have a day job. So I work full-time as a software engineer in San Mateo, 3 days in office, 2 days work from home. And so I have a very busy week generally. And so talking about, what my month would look like, typically there are at least 2 or 3 community events that I feel I need to put in an appearance at. As a council member, I am a liaison with the Parks and Recreation Commission. I know Alyssa is also a council liaison. We all serve as a rotating liaison for commission, so that's 1 meeting a month. Try to make it to Livable Sunnyvale and Democratic Club meetings when I can. We have 2 Tuesday council meetings per month minimum, many of which typically start at 5 or 5:30 p.m. with closed session or study sessions. I have intergovernmental relation assignments, typically at least 1 to 2 of those per month. Any of the official meetings, there is a packet that comes that you need to read beforehand. And so typically, what I say is that anyone looking to run for Sunnyvale City Council should be looking to be doing about 15 to 20 hours per week on average of work on that. It's roughly a half-time position. And the other thing I will say is I call this a gaseous position. It expands to fill the time allotted to it. For a time last year, I took some time off between jobs. I was putting in 30 hours a week, 30, 40 on council things. You're going to have constituents who want to meet with you. You're going to have you're going to have a lot of email to respond to. Some of that email is going to truly test your patience. And that's another part of it is, you have to have really good people skills, and you have to be very good at biting your tongue. There are going to be a lot of interactions where you're just going to have to paint that smile on your face because that's part of the job. But that said, I find time for myself, so I'm queer. I try to find events in the queer community to go to. I try to find personal time to read, I've been playing a lot of chess lately. You have to have hobbies, you have to have personal time. And even like right now, where we're in the midst of, we did 40 board and commission interviews Monday and Tuesday. And we had a major commission meeting on Wednesday night. We had what was it? I had a water board meeting on Thursday night. We have a full council meeting and a budget hearing next week. So this is really crunch time. Even when it gets like that, you still have to make sure you're finding time for yourself. So it is a substantial time commitment. I won't lie about that, but it is a manageable.
Okay, and I'm going to ask the same question of you, Jose. So,
Yeah, so similar for the Board of Education, it is like a part-time role, and I do that because as a board member, if I am grocery shopping, there have been times where folks have come to talk to me about something that happened at their school, or can you open up the fences at the school because we want to play pickleball. Like that's another issue that's come up in our community too. And so, similar to what Richard is mentioning, it does range. For me, we have 2 board meetings a month. Board president has, I will say, or board vice president has significantly different roles. But as a trustee, I attend 2 meetings a month. Those range in time. They can range from anywhere from 2 hours to, during the pandemic, 6 hours, 7 hours at times. But that has shifted. Um, in addition to that, as Richard mentioned, we have different subcommittees that we're on. So I'm on the superintendent subcommittee on policy. One of these subcommittees on our grading for equity. Because I have a background in teaching and education, my role during the day is I'm an executive director for an education policy nonprofit. So the superintendent does come to me to say, hey, I have a question about this. Hey, I have a question about this. Or even when I go do school visits, because I believe that's an important piece as a board member, she'll ask, hey, some of the pedagogical practices, can we talk about that? I'm able to do that as a board member because I've been able to teach. But it also depends, and I'll say our board does a really good job at leaning into our strengths and our interests. And so some board members have a really great background in labor relations. So they get to help the board in those areas. And so for me as a board member, it can range. For example, in 2 weeks, I will be spending more time in my role as a board member because it's graduation, which means we get to shake hands with every student that walks across the stage. So yes, it will take 2 hours, but it is some of the most amazing 2 hours of my time where I get to, literally shake every student's hand from Lincoln High School and congratulate them for the success that they will be getting to lean into. And I will say too, another piece to add on to what Richard was saying is I'm also a parent in the district in my role. So last night we were at movie night, and yes, I was Papi there, but I also was Trustee Magana. So actually in line for we were getting popcorn. I was answering some questions because we are considering an upcoming bond, and so there were some questions around what that could look like. It was going to be around employee housing, student facilities, things of that nature. And so it is kind of what you make of it, of the role as a board member. I have seen in some cases, and you may see this in other, and I'm sure we'll talk about this too. Some board members are there just to stir things up. They don't read things. They don't prepare. And it's unfortunate. They're using the space as a space for politics rather than policy for our kids and for our educators and for our community. And so it is kind of what you make of it. And for me, uh, this is, this is one of the most honorable things I've ever been able to do. Being a father, being a husband are 2 of the best titles I have, but being a trustee is something that people don't ever get to do. And there's a lot of great people in the community that can do this job. And so my take as a school board member is this, is be the board member that you deserved as a student, that your kids deserve as students, that your community deserves. So that means you do the reading, right? You go to the committees, you meet with your legislators, you do go above and beyond because this work is personal and kids are depending on us, right? The longer we wait, it impacts our kids' lives. And so it does kind of depend, again, on the person. It does depend on the trustee area. I also represent downtown San Jose and parts and the Rose Garden. So it's very, very busy with events and constituents coming to ask because there's a lot of constituents that I'm representing right now. And so again, I think this is one of the most important jobs I have, again, not just because folks elected me to this, but my work impacts my kids' day-to-day lives for the next 12, well, she's in TK, so for the next 12 years, and then her younger sister who follows 2 years after. So yeah, so it can range in time, but all good work.
Same question? Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Similar to what Richard and Jose have said, I mean, we spend about 15 hours a week on board issues. So different whether it's reading packets. We got our board packet for Tuesday. On Thursday, we have this packet is actually an average of about 600 pages. Sometimes they can go up plus over 1,000. Sometimes it's, under 600, but it does take you because you want to be diligent. You want to make sure that you understand what you are sitting in the board meeting for and making decisions for. You have to read, and you should read and show up. And like Jose said, not so much on the school, not on my school board, but I have seen, because I go to a lot of council meetings, that you can tell when people have not read the packet. And what we also do is we send in our questions to the packet. And so we've got to get those in by Sunday night so that the staff can review those. And then you got to read that when it comes back. Along with that, we are, each school district is very different and each board operates differently. So we all operate under California Education Code, but there are board policies and administrative regulations that are different. But I mean, I'd say almost, there's very slight differences, but the culture of the organization can be very different. So I know that there are school boards who aren't as engaged physically in the community, whereas there is an expectation on the FUHSD board that you are out in the community, you are getting to know the community knows who you are. We are attending not just school board events or school district events, but we are attending events out in the community. And so that is an expectation that was set by a former board member probably 15, 20 years ago. And it's still that. And that means that if I was working up until March, I had to juggle a full-time job, which is because I was in executive management, was more than 40 hours, and then manage being on the board and being out in the community. So it is a juggling act. Unfortunately, I think elected positions, you have to have privilege to be able to sit in that, because you have to have financial resources. You have to have resources that are outside of that. So because I was in management, I could juggle my time. If you are someone who is hourly paid, you don't have that luxury to do so. We identified a candidate in North Sunnyvale to possibly run. She couldn't take time off because she was hour. So that took out a good candidate. We've, compensation, we get no I mean, we get a very small stipend. We were, and each district is different depending on the enrollment of students. And so we were getting approximately 400 a month, which doesn't pay for gas. And then because of the decline in enrollment, we're now down, we got cut by 50%. So $200 basically to do all the things that we do. And we attend, and a lot of these community events you have to pay for. So that takes out a lot of people. But if you are lower resourced and have children and you need to have childcare, that's, all these things point to the fact that if you don't have that privilege, you can't run and serve in the way that, these are our community members who have the most lived experience, who understand the issues, who need to be on the school board or on city council. So, and then I just wanted to end with, I like Alyssa, I love serving on the school board. As tough as the times are sometimes, it is a passion of mine to see that all of our students get access to quality education. And one of the things that was said to me when, or to a couple of us when we took office, is that we all get the title of honorable, And this person said, who is an elected official, said, honorable is not a title, it's a way of being. And so I carry that with me all the time.
I just want to follow up on something that you said, Naomi, because I think we're in a really unique position right now at FUHSD in that we are moving, like currently in the process, we're moving from this at-large representation to a different model of representation. And Jose and our council members, I know that you know now. I mean, it's not been too long for Sunnyvale, but you know now what it's like to serve in a district or in a trustee area. And my question is, and I'm open to anybody, but so if there has been a pattern of like this is the way we engage, this is how we're in the community, and now we're in trustee areas, and we know that there's maybe a discrepancy in privilege. Are there other ways to be in the community besides like attending events and paying for tickets and like giving recognition? What other ways can we be in the community and serve our community and still be that honorable person? And that's open to anyone.
Is this on? Okay, cool. I did some of that this morning. And I mean, I love living in downtown Sunnyvale. And if you've ever been there, you can probably guess why. We have a wonderful farmers market every Saturday until 2 p.m. And what I like to do is more than any other event is I just like going to the farmers market with my family and talking to other families and finding those things in common. Somebody I meet at the tomato stand, they don't even need to live in my district, but it's like knowing people, the vendors. These are people who have small businesses, taking that opportunity to stop in for coffee somewhere, grab lunch, and just check in, right? And also make sure like that honorable piece. That's also when people talk to you and you see council member, it's this, oh, that's kind of intimidating. Like, are you like, it seems inaccessible, but you're a lot more accessible when you're talking about which kind of apple is the best one, right? And you're not, and I'm not dressed like I am now, right? I'm wearing just my jeans and my shirt. And that's one way to do it. And also walking around, and I have a dog. So they're all, and so you meet other dog owners. There's all these ways to find these small touch points, but it's continuous work doing it. And you know what? It's a lot more enjoyable than 90% of those events. And you have those genuine connections and you remember like, yeah, somebody has an issue. My favorite thing is like being like, that's a thing on that sidewalk. Write down your number. I'll make some calls. Like being able to do something like that, like that's really clutch. And then they show up for you and they become wonderful friends. And so the small touch points, I think, and when you're in a district, it's smaller geographically, you're able to go around and really get a sense of all the different aspects of your community. So that'd be my advice.
So, something that you said about accessibility, and I want to mention that I'm a teacher as well, and COVID came, and I now have the privilege to not have to teach, and I miss it dearly. But I'm wondering, and I'm going to ask this specifically of you, Jose, have you seen teachers able to teach as well as serve? And what does that look like if there's so many time commitments? Like, where do you put your time? How do you manage all that and do both well?
Yeah, so actually during the pandemic, a group of us who work in education, a group of us, I mean, school boards, a couple school board members, I was working in a nonprofit. A lot of them were currently teaching and serving on school boards at the same time. And we founded a group called the Digital Equity Coalition that advocated for expansion of digital resources for our students. So hotspots, Chromebooks, et cetera, during the pandemic. To your point, I know a number of folks who are currently educators and that are serving on boards. It's tough. It's tough. Teaching isn't sustainable by itself. Teachers will tell you it is hard work just teaching itself. I taught before the pandemic, I taught kindergarten, and I couldn't imagine teaching all day with my kiddos and then coming to sit in a board meeting. So to answer your question, it is tough. I don't want to sugarcoat that. But it is possible because I think an advantage that we have as educators in school boards is when the superintendent is using acronyms and we're talking about education, I know exactly what she's talking about. I don't have to do quote unquote extra work to just understand the basics because that's what I do for work. I actually do consulting in this type of work. So I have that strength, and teachers come in with the understanding of knowing the policies that they're making will have impact on people like them, people who are in the classroom like them. Um, and so, yeah, it is hard. I have seen some folks leave the classroom and do other work, or vice versa. They leave the board to focus on teaching because it is a lot to manage. I think in general, working and running for office or being an elected official is difficult. But I think it also comes with a lot of strengths. And frankly, during the pandemic, I don't know how I could have been a school board member. I would have been like drowning in information, drowning I was already drowning with the anxiety and the stress of everything that we were dealing with. Um, and to add an extra layer of having to learn basically like a new language and education policy is pretty interesting. If you look at ed code, it gets even more interesting. There's a lot to manage. And so I think, again, I think it's difficult, but it is possible. And if anything, I think it adds a strength to board members when they're, passing policy.
So I want to move back to our council members. Now that we are in districts, we've seen our council change drastically ever since we've gone to districts. And I want to ask first you, Richard, and then you, Alyssa, um, how does that new increase, you all look so different now, right, than before. How does that impact the policy decisions that are being made?
So I think it impacts the policy decisions, but not necessarily in the way people would expect. So what I will say is, and we actually just adopted a council policy on this lines. District council members are not there to represent their districts. They are there to represent the interests of the entire city or the entire body, as the case may be. And we actually just formally adopted this as a policy. Now you have a special responsibility to your district. You have a special responsibility to your trustee area. Your constituents are going to come to you. You are to be a voice specifically to deal with problems in your district. But you should not be approaching the role as, there are cities with a strong tradition of what's called district prerogative, where Chicago is the classic example of this, where the district council members, or aldermen in that case, act as little kings and queens of their districts. Los Angeles has had, I think, 5 council members hauled away in cuffs in the past 6 or 7 years, substantially due to the sort of corruption that arises out of district prerogative very naturally. So that is something that, when we talk about district and trustee area elections, maintaining the sense that, yes, we are all focused on the good of the whole body. We are not acting as little kings and queens of our little fiefdoms.
Mhm.
That's really important. But it has changed the way the city operates, and the city council operates, and the way it's changed it actually has more to do with the way that district elections make campaigning more accessible. Because prior to district elections in the city of Sunnyvale, when people were running at large, that meant you had 150,000 constituents. Call that, I think, 60,000 voters that you had to reach. That's expensive. It is time consuming, and there is no way any candidate can knock even a small fraction of those doors. You're lucky if you could hit 10% of those doors. And you have to go all over the city. Whereas for Alyssa's campaign and my campaign, our constituencies are 26,000 each, give or take. I was able to personally knock about a third of the doors in my district. And I think we had enough volunteers to make sure that pretty much every door that was accessible got knocked. I was able to put out 3 mailers to my entire district, I would have struggled to put out 1 in a citywide election, right? And that smaller constituency size, that has a couple of effects. First of all, it makes the council members more accessible, right? You have fewer constituents, which means it's easier for your constituents to get a hold of you. It also means that you now become the natural focus point for your constituents, right? When it's an at-large system, people will just sort of hold their finger in the air and say, okay, I guess I like that one, I'll email them, or they'll email the whole body. The other consequence of this is that it's because it has made campaigning more accessible. We went from a council that in 2020, by my count, had 5 white men, 1 Asian man, and 1 white woman, to the most diverse council in our history, right? This is by far, we have young people, we have LGBT people, we have, I believe, a majority council of color, right? This is the most, we have a diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds and professions. All of that has been enabled simply by the fact that our constituencies are smaller, right? That has actually been the key shift in the key impact of district elections, in my opinion.
And Alyssa, before you continue on that question, I want to also ask you to thank you so much, Richard, for acknowledging that the change from an at-large to a district election makes such a big difference in who's able to even think about stepping up. But Alyssa, I wanted to ask you also, now that you are in office and there is more diversity, how do having those different voices, how does that impact those conversations you're having and the policies that you're making?
In a very significant way. And the reason why is because when you do have people from those different backgrounds, when you make decisions, if everyone comes from the same background, has a similar resume, has similar life experiences, you're going to get people with very similar takes on the issues, which then in turn creates policy that is really consistent, but not really inclusive of a whole lot of different opinions. And so when we've looked at policies, our priorities, our council priorities, different ways we can, different study issues we put up, different options we can consider, they're different. And you have people on that dais who, by the way, my council is so respectful of one another. And I'm grateful all the time, especially when I read the news, how respectful everyone is. We disagree, but that starts a conversation that brings people in and makes those decisions more representative of how more of our community feels, because we represent more of our community than it had been before. Like, I have this background of, yeah, I was on food stamps and I was housing insecure. And so, hey, what if what if me or somebody like me had a say in the kind of social services that the city could provide, or the resources to those at risk for homelessness or affordable housing. And there are a million cases like that for the folks on my council, like in their own unique ways. Richard has his own experience. It's different from mine. That's different from the people who were on council before. And what we've seen is we have an ambitious, progressive, little p, progressive, meaning progress, not Bernie Sanders, move toward really imagining what the future of the city would look like if more people were included. For example, we have the Human Relations Commission, where we have and that was actually my first study issue in my council, and we worked on it, and we have this commission to help us on DEI issues. And we have a monolingual Spanish speaker on that commission helping us with that. And think about that kind of perspective that has never, ever, ever had a voice in the city before. And that actually moves what we do for the better. And so that's the effect of district elections. That's where you get into the fun stuff and you start seeing the results, and that turns into budget proposals, and those budget proposals turn into law, and it cascades, and it also invites more people. Hey, I see myself up there. I see my values there. and I want to run. And I've started to see that, and it's very cool.
Wonderful. And could you please pass the microphone to Naomi? But Naomi, I want to ask you specifically as you know, you've been a champion of social justice throughout your life. That is your identity, and we know that. And I've gotten to know you in many ways, and we know where your heart is, and we know that this trustee area thing. I mean, it's new to me. At large, going from at large to trustee area, but you know, Naomi's been talking about this forever. This is not a new concept. You know, Naomi has been pointing out. I'm sorry to put you on the spot a little and to kind of shine that light on you, but she has been pointing out the disparities in outcome for our students up here north, the Browner students. And we are making progress. We have trustee areas now. We're about to embark on the impact of that. Naomi, I'm wondering, what do you see or hope having different type of representation will do for Fremont Union High School District specifically?
Well, as a school board member, I mean, my role is to be ambassador, cheerleader, advocate for our district, and I am 110% that. But it's also my role to be critical of the systems that are in place, right? So, because historically we have been heavily, I guess, seated by members of our community who are from south of our district, who are probably more well-resourced, come with, even if they are immigrants, are coming with different reasons why they're coming. Some are coming because of it's a career path for them or a way to make more money. And others are coming because their life depends on being here. Their life in their home country is not safe for them or their children. So if you don't understand those perspectives, you can't make decisions like in EL, right? We have a great speech contest. I mean, it's wonderful. I get to judge and do listen to these students, but I always wonder and I question, you know, how do you keep the same rigor, keep the same standards with our students, but those students who come here from Japan or Korea or Taiwan, who come with their parents who, you know, have a job or a place to stay, and then you have maybe students who have faced trauma to get here, right? And not only are they learning English, they have to deal with the trauma that they have had in their families, and then maybe not be able to have the income resources that they need. So how do you compare that, right? I mean, or judge that in a speech contest? And so things like that. And you know what? I forgot the question now.
I I think my I did too. I agree. And what do you think? How do you think things might shift on the board policy?
So I think that those different perspectives get to the table. Now, you know, I posted a meme on Facebook the other day that said, just because you're invited doesn't mean you're going to get something at the table or that you're welcome, right? So that's the other part is now that we have trustee areas, we have to make sure that those who get elected into those positions are going to be supported and welcome and feel like they belong and that their voices are just as important, because those voices have been missing and those perspectives have been missing. Now, even just looking at our the high school district, we have 2 feeder districts, right? Cupertino Union School District, Sunnyvale School District, both great districts in different ways. But you know, I'm the only one that's from the Sunnyvale School District, and so my perspective of what goes on and some of the negative things that I hear from when my kids were growing up, that their peers in the Cupertino School District said to them, made them feel like lower class citizens, right? So if you don't have representation, then people can't see that you have, you know, that I'm going to get in trouble with policy. I mean that people, there's stereotypes of, you know, intellectual ability, productivity, these types of things. And so when you don't see someone who are in seats of power, I guess, and power I use lightly because I don't like power and stuff, but then you're always going to think those negative stereotypes, right? So anyway, I hope I answered the question.
Yes, and I'd also like to speak to you, Jose, about so Naomi, in my leadership group, and I see David, my fellow partner member, we interviewed you and we asked you same type of topic, but you said, you can be invited to the table and you can have a seat at the table, but how do you make sure that food is passed to you? Right. I would like Jose to kind of speak to that a little bit. How do you get that food passed to you? How do you recognize not necessarily just the metrics and the deficiencies, but actually value and uplift those qualities that we do see and yeah, how can we do that for our students as electives?
Yeah, and I'll start too. San Jose Unified in the 1980s was found guilty of segregation, specifically of our Latino students. And so the fact that I'm a board member is pretty cool. And so trustee areas do matter. It does have influence, and we have seen our board as well has diversified over the years. So just want to emphasize that point. To your point, when it comes to I'm trying to like figure out how to word this. Specifically, I don't want to get in trouble either, too. Oh,
We speak code.
yeah. So okay, like for me, I think it's so important that when I'm at the I knew that if I did not demand to be at the table and do the work to be there, I was never going to be allowed there. I had folks that looked like me who had similar experiences than me that told me, wait your turn. And I said, I have. Like I have waited my turn. My turn is now. You folks, you have said young people need to run, educators need to run. Folks, cool, check, check, check. I'm here. Let's do this. So one, I demanded in a nice way, right? In a nice way, to be at the table. And I did that because I offered people my story and what I could bring to the table, which was my experience and solutions. Right? I wasn't just coming in to say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, but it was, this is the pathway that we get there and how we get there together. I think the other piece, and we talked about this, I was very upfront with my colleagues around how I make decisions. Just very clear. I told them, I want to know what the data and research says. I'm going to ask these two other questions. What is the impact on kids and what is the impact on the community? If I can positively answer all three, I'm going to consider the policy. If not, maybe we can find a win-win or no deal, right? Like maybe that's something where I cannot support that. And here's why. And we were talking earlier too, I think a piece that I really pushed to establish in relationship building. And when I ran Context Y'all, I ran against two very well-known individuals. I wasn't supposed to win, as the mayor told me. I did. Did the work. But what I really established with my colleagues on the board was made it clear we are not going to agree on 100% of things, and that's okay. That's democracy. That's the way it works. But the one thing we need to agree on is this is a value that we led with at City Year, a nonprofit that I worked at, which was students first, collaboration always. We need to send our students first and collaborate when we do that, because if we don't, if we are a hot mess, it trickles down. I don't believe in trickle down economics in the slightest, but I believe in trickle down culture, especially with schools. If the school board is a mess, principals aren't going to feel supported, teachers aren't going to feel supported, students aren't going to feel good. And as a parent, I could tell when there's a mess, right? I'm like, and then you're going to ask me to pass a bond and increase my, it keeps rippling. And so one, I demanded to be at the table. I was solutions oriented. And then I think the piece that I just did was I led with my story so folks understood the impact of our decisions. When we talked about switching from pre-K to TK, I could share, I know we've had this pre-K program for 15 years. I, as a kid, could not go to pre-K because my mom could not pull me out halfway through the school day. She couldn't afford, where else was she going to put me? I actually remember moving from childcare center to, I got my first black eye at a childcare center. Like, I remember that. The switch to TK enabled us to have full day, high quality, not super academic, but a safe place for kids to have fun, to play. And my child is now in a two-way bilingual TK program. And yes, her Spanish is amazing. Her English is amazing, and she feels loved and supported. And that's becoming the norm across the district. And we did this before the state mandated it, right? So things like this matter. And and I will say too, I want to be blunt. As a young man of color, I had to play it very carefully because even when I was at doors, you don't know, some of the things that I heard at the doors, some people say some out of pocket things. Tell you that. And so I had to be very careful with that. And the way I do that to kind of battle the imposter syndrome I deal with too is just being prepared so that when folks try to say this isn't possible, library cards that's not a thing that, library cards in a school ID card is not possible in the school district. I got to say, well, actually, I did the research on this and I'm on the library commission too. So I talked to staff. We already got it lined up. You just got to sign the MOU.
Yeah.
It was done. And then the pandemic happened and our kids had digital resource access. It was a win. So demand being at the table, I will say being loud. There's Latinos for Education. We lead with a value that says agitate when necessary. There is a time and place. But we also say be like water, be calm, go with the flow, but also be that raging storm when you need to be that raging storm advocating for people.
Okay, like I could spend about 20 hours right now, just all the things you just said, like trickle down culture. Like, let's dig into that. We can't do it right now. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying there is so much here. The childcare, right. There's having spaces for children that enable their adults to also thrive. We will continue that later. We don't have that much time, and I also want to honor the audience and make sure that you have enough time. So we're going to switch gears completely to campaigning, and I'd like to hear from my council member because he's had some sit-down talks with me about what that's like, how that's different than actually serving. What do we need to be prepared for there, Richard?
Oh boy. Campaigning is very different than governing. Governing is what you would call low to medium intensity, consistent workload. Yes, there are spikes and ups and downs, but it's a job. Okay. It is a job. It is a job you have to put a lot into, but it is fundamentally a job. A campaign is not a job. Okay. A campaign is a competition. And personally, I would call it's a battle. It is a contest. Okay. And the first thing to know going into a campaign is it's going to be very different from most of what we do in our adult lives, because especially what I would say in Northern California here in the year 2024 is this is a place that's sort of very, at least outwardly, friendly and go with the flow. It is not a place where most adults experience a lot of direct face-to-face competition. A lot of direct face-to-face. One person is going to win that campaign. Okay, if you're in the old style of top N people are going to win that campaign, and everyone else is going to lose. And if you're going to be running, right, you have to be prepared to understand that what you are signing up for is a contest. You are signing up to do the best you can, and your opponents are going to be doing the best they can too. So that's the first thing to be prepared for, is you have to be ready for this sort of very unusual thing that does not really happen too much in many of our day-to-day lives, which is a direct head-to-head competition with a winner and losers. Beyond that, you need to be, like I said, governing, yeah, okay, 15, 20 hours a week, a lot of reading, a lot of campaigning. You are knocking doors. If you have spare time, you should be knocking doors, making phone calls, fundraising. It is your life for a good 6 months, let's say. It is total in a lot of ways. It is stressful. It is hard. You need a very good support network. If you are even thinking about running a campaign, you should be in therapy. No, I am serious. I am 100% serious. I will not endorse a candidate who does not have a therapist. I am serious. Okay? You need to have people you can vent to. You need friends. You also need people who can tell you when your head is up. Because what happens when you are campaigning, because of this nature, this highly competitive, contested nature, is you can develop what a friend of mine calls candidate brain, where you start fighting shadows, right? You are so amped up that you start leaping at things that aren't there. And when you start doing that, you start making mistakes. Okay. Again, I've mentioned that I play chess. It's sort of like when you think there's a threat and it's not really there, that can actually lead to you losing a one game, right? So you need a crew of people who are not just there to tell you, I support you, I love you, you're going to be okay. You need people who will tell you, what the hell are you doing? Stop, right? No, do not do that. No, do not hit post. Write the angry email and delete it, right? You need people who will keep you in line. Okay. You need to be prepared for a lot of stress. You need to be prepared for a lot of work. But I will tell you, it is worth it, because you will learn things about your community that there is no other way to learn, right? It will change you, and you will learn so much. Even if you lose, you will learn so much. And that's the other thing I'm going to say is if you're running a campaign, yes, you have to give it your all, because not all of us have the luxury of having an opponent who you can say, well, I would rather be in, but he'd be fine. I kind of had that luxury. My opponent, I think I am doing a lot better job than he would have, but he would have been okay. He would have had a lot of ramping up to do, but I think in the end, he would have been okay. But some of us, Naomi has run against some real ghouls. Okay. Like, and you have to be okay. You have to be ready to do what it takes to win, but you also have to be okay with the possibility of losing, because it's a real possibility and you have to be ready for that. So that is as much as I can compress it as I can. And
I actually want to pause right there because of our time, and I would like to ask each of you because I know this is generating a lot of thinking for us all in the audience and at home. So I'd like to ask, may we also reach out to you individually if we have follow-up? Okay. So I'd like to give the audience a chance to ask some questions and then come back for some final statements. Is there anybody online that would like to speak? And in person, please step up to the mic. And if there aren't questions, so we have plenty more to talk about.
This is Richard Lesher. Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my name is Richard Lesher. I'm registered as a candidate for District 6. This is a very valuable, my brain is just spinning right now with all this information. But don't have a political background and possibly like the other Richard in the room who stepped into this new political game. What is the biggest thing that you think that you wish you knew after the election process, that first experience? What was the biggest thing that surprised you that you learned from your experience? Thank you.
Somebody else go first.
I'm probably gonna get in trouble again, but it's okay. Um, how disappointing it can be. In that one, it's disappointing in how much money I had to raise to be on the school board. Um, and to think all that money that could have gone directly to students was just it was gross how much money was spent. And what helped me feel good was reminding myself like this will enable me to make decisions that will be good for kids. Um, and I actually do this at times as a school board member. I get caught up where things will happen politically, and I have to remind myself, like, yes, this you're doing this because you care so much. This is great work. This is political still at the end of the day. And people are going to disappoint you. People who you thought were your friend or colleague, it may be a transactional thing at the end of the day. And I say that because as I taught kindergarten, right? Like we're about building relationships with people and like being nice. And that's what I was teaching kids. And then you hear about things, people who are in your home, you're having dinner with, and you hear what they were saying about you or about your family and it's disappointing. And then it's disappointing that the next day, those are the same people calling you, asking to meet to talk about policy that is in their best interest. Um, but I think to in the piece that is on the flip side of the disappointing part was the excitement part of knowing, okay, like I got here, great. We played the games, the political games a little bit, got the endorsements I needed, knocked on all the doors that needed to be knocked on. And fun fact, I lost 30 pounds over my campaign. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, there's a joke in the family of like, hey, la dieta is what we say. Come knock on doors for candidates. But yeah, I think the disappointment of that was tough. Folks again that you knew, and then you see the attack ads. There was an attack ad where they took out all the accents in my name and said, I was like, oh, I can hear the whistle from all the way from here. And that was disappointing. People who I texted immediately and were like, I know you were involved in this ad. Like, what? Ouch. But again, it's a political thing. At the end of the day, decisions are made. You're voting on contracts. You are making decisions that is political. And so I think that was the most challenging part, the part that I would have maybe I was naive going into it. But I have to check myself at times too, that yes, I love this work. This is literally it's personal work for me. And I'm always going to lead with my values and what I think is important. For some folks, politics will be what they lead with. And that is just a part of navigating the systems that we talk about that are set up to do what they are meant to do.
I have a very quick one, super quick. Campaigns are finite and leadership isn't. And it's a double-edged sword. When you're having a bad day on the campaign, you can remember time moves in a linear fashion, and there will be a day when there's nothing I can do and it's over. And then when you're like, I have a lot of stuff to do, but it's going well, time is moving in a linear fashion and it's going to be over. So what are you going to prioritize your time on? So if I had something to say to you, what I wish I knew is time prioritization and being mindful of time. What you have, what you don't, what's important, what's going to make a difference, and what just makes you feel good, but probably doesn't matter. Keep that in mind at all times. And even the Facebook fights, just don't do it. Especially next door. Don't do that. It's never worth it. No good will come of it.
Gail, did you have a question yourself or yeah?
I know this is kind of weird, but about how much money do you have to raise for a campaign? And then how much does a flyer cost?
So, it is entirely dependent on the number of voters in your district. It's dependent on how many households you're trying to hit. When you are doing mailers, you hopefully have a political campaign consultant. They will help you target which households it's worth sending mailers to. So mine were typically Democratic likely voters, right? So assume you're using a union press, because you'd better be using a union press. Assume with postage about $1.50 a mailer. Prices go down the more mailers you're doing. For me, we were doing mailers to, about 6,000 households, let's say 3,000. I don't remember the exact numbers. It was about, no, we were doing about 3,000 households. It was about $2,000-$3,000 per mailer, I think. I don't remember that off the top of my head. And you can go look it up on my campaign filings, or on Alyssa's campaign filings, by the way. But it's a few $1,000s per mailer at the district size that Sunnyvale council races are at. That does not count, time and money spent on designing and implementing.
I'm going to go to Tim Wee online, please.
Thanks. Thank you all for your service. Serving as a elected official is an awesome contribution to our communities. I really respect your time that you've done for us. So thank you so much. I was curious. So what? Let's see. What was the thing that most motivated you to want to be on office? What was the key thing that just, flipped your switch? What, early on in your life or later? That's my question. Thank you.
I have a very short response to this. If you want a job done right, you do it yourself.
I'm going to say, probably after I got elected, is that I was the voice of a lot of people who had not been heard. And so something as simple as making sure that gender neutral bathrooms were going to be on campus when we did renovations, those are the things that really motivate me, because I think I see with things from a different lens and I have different lived experience. So, and hopefully now we're going to get more diverse lived experience on our board, but that's what's motivated me.
We have another question in the room, unless either of you. Do you have a question? Yes. Sorry. Please, yeah.
Muy buenas tardes, buenas noches. Bueno, buenas tardes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Yo vivo aquí en lo que es ahora el mapa 2 de Sunnyvale. I live here, what is now map 2 of Sunnyvale, en el distrito de Fremont Union High School District, en el distrito de Fremont Union High School District. Yo soy maestra del distrito aquí en Sunnyvale y vivo aquí, pero me interesa mucho hacia dónde van mis estudiantes. I'm a teacher here in Sunnyvale, and obviously I live here, but I'm really interested in where my students are going when they go to the high school. So I have a lot of investment in their careers and their potential and where they will land. Yo siento que tengo una inversión muy personal en quiénes van a llegar a ser, quiénes van a devenir y cuál va a ser su formación profesional. And with the work that people did to get the maps to be equitable and more reasonable for somebody who's interested, I really am considering and thinking about, if not now, when. And so I have a lot of questions as a teacher. Desde este punto de vista, me pongo a pensar ahorita, ya que los mapas se han formulado de una manera que son más equitativos y que nos permiten tener una representación más justa, si no es ahora, ¿cuándo lo voy a hacer y cuándo lo vamos a hacer? Eso significa que tengo muchas preguntas y algunas quisiera ver si me las contestan. That means that with these questions and fears, I would like to know if you could walk me through a day, actually not a day, a timeline from today to the moment the ballots are counted. Si me pudieran decir, por favor, cómo se siente a partir del día de hoy hasta el día en que se cuentan los votos. And That also means money because I am a teacher. I work for the district. I do not have money to throw at a campaign and go against people who do, but I do have a heart. And when you talk about hardworking, my husband, who I love dearly, will tell you this woman will not stop. So I am not afraid of work. Y si desde ahorita como maestra no tengo el dinero ni los fondos para lanzar una carrera de campaña contra alguien que sí los tiene, pues tengo el interés y como le dirá a mi marido, esta mujer trabaja duro y no hay que lo detenga. Eso significa que quiero saber en lo que me estoy metiendo porque me interesa mucho el bienestar de los estudiantes, which means I have my students at heart. I'm willing to do hard work, but I want to know if I were interested in this, what does that mean financially? And what does that mean? I'm not on socials and I don't intend to be, but I want to communicate with people. I want to meet people and I want to help my students in their futures. No estoy en las redes sociales, no me interesa ahorita estarlo, pero sí quiero comunicarme con las personas y quiero ver de qué manera ayudo a mis estudiantes en sus futuros. So that was a roundabout way of saying, what should I be looking forward to or not? De esa manera así tan amplia llego a preguntar, ¿qué es lo que me espera? Y qué es lo que tal vez no me guste que me espera, pero es bueno saber. And thank you.
Okay. I have a quick one. So previous to being an elected official, I was a campaign consultant. And I no longer do that for a living. But here's what you do. You find somebody who is really good at math and really meticulous and who can keep track of your money because you really can't mess that up ever. And it's best to just find somebody who's not going to be campaign brain tired, doing all of that, just have their one job. Then somebody to go ahead and handle designing mailers and just making sure that you know your deadlines. Even somebody to manage your calendar, like that's very helpful. And then get someone to coordinate your volunteers. There you go. Those are the main functions. And then for the days after, all the way up until election day, you'll have your deadlines figured out, all your reporting with your money, and then you spend every day doing one of three things. You are talking to your voters, you are raising money, or you are in the community in some way. And you do those things over and over and over again. And sometimes you cry and you should talk to your therapist. I'm serious. Like they're going to lean on you. And like, it's important for you to be healthy and strong and you eat well and you like try never to neglect your basic needs and lean on who you have to, but you talk to voters, you raise money, you're in your community until that ballot drops and you have your friends help you with the other stuff. But if you have nothing else, if you do those three things, you will have had a successful time win, lose, or draw.
I'm going to add a couple things to that. The three roles Alyssa called out are very important. There is a fourth that is critical, and that is your campaign manager. Your campaign manager is your right hand. It is their job to do a few things. First, it is to keep all the timelines on track. You want someone who is highly organized, someone who, if they haven't done campaign management before, someone who is a project manager is often a really good fit for this sort of job. They can set up a Trello board. They can set up a calendar. Their job is to make sure that everything is firing on all cylinders, that all of the deadlines are getting tracked and met, that all of the work product is getting done on time. It is their job to make sure everyone else on the team is operating, is doing their jobs. It is their job to make sure all the paperwork is filed. I have seen candidates get lost in the weeds, get lost in the paperwork, and get crushed as a result, because then they're not doing the things Alyssa called out, which is, as a candidate, what you need to be doing. For someone who isn't on social media yourself, hire a social media person. You can typically get someone fresh out of school, not very expensive. And they can run, an Instagram, a TikTok, whatever. They'll tell you where to be and they'll tell you smile for the camera and, maybe do some short videos or whatever, but they can run that. You don't need to run that. Your job is to be getting in front of voters. Some more specific calendar dates to be aware of. Filing deadline is early August. Endorsement meetings. The endorsement meetings are mostly in summer. Every organization that endorses is going to have a questionnaire. They are invasive. They are long. They are a pain. You still got to do them. Okay. Because every organization that's endorsing thinks they're the most important organization in the world and you should drop everything just for them. That's the way it is. Forums tend to be September, October. And if you're thinking of running, you should be ready to be knocking doors no later than early July, probably early June. So that's some specifics on that.
So we are running really short on time, and we have a little bit of business to take care of at 3:30. Yes. Oh, do you have a question? Please.
Yeah. So to Richard's point, if you're curious on what's the yeah, if you're curious as to the actual most important endorsement interview process, it's ours, the Democratic Club of Sunnyvale. And our endorsement meetings schedule is essentially, we're going to be doing the city council endorsement meetings on June 22nd. If you are a Democratic candidate for city council, you should have gotten an email from me earlier this week. If you are planning on being a Democratic candidate for city council and you did not get an email from me, please send an email. Please email board at either my personal email address if you have that, or board at SunnyvaleDems.org if you don't have it, because that means I don't know you're running, and we should fix that. Second, for school boards, those will be happening in August and September. I don't have the exact timeline yet because it would be because we're still figuring out who all the candidates are. But I will get back to if I know you're running, I will get back to you on that. By the point we're doing those endorsements, I should be able to know you're running just from the paperwork. But feel free to reach out to me whenever if you're interested in running.
Okay, thank you. So we have, I had in my notes that we were supposed to be ending on like a positive note and like happy, like, oh, and when you serve, what kind of difference are you going to make? And what's been so heartwarming. So we didn't quite get to all of that. And I know that what we've all said here has generated so much questions. So we're going to be moving into our business. We're electing a new board. And when we do that, I want to invite you all. I know some of you should be voting and you should be joining our club. But I want to, yeah, you don't have to live in Sunnyvale. Many people don't because many places don't have a club as like ours. So anyway, I invite you all to move on to the back of the room, do your voting and stuff, and continue conversations if there are people in the room that would like to do that. We will also have some follow-up. I know Isabel Hubes Flamrich running, she's the president currently. She just made this amazing video. It's the impact of representation. We'll be sending that out. We got some information from Ron Gonzalez, our former mayor here in San Jose, that he wants people to also know about holding elected office. So there's going to be a lot of follow-up, so make sure you are a member. And I want to give you each just like a closing statement, please. A minute and a half. Would you like my direction in that? Yes. Okay. Like, give me a prompt. No, he's ready.
I want to make sure, and I say this, I was ringing the alarms 2 years ago and everyone was like, you're being dramatic. I wasn't, I was right. 23 MAGA candidates ran for school board 2 years ago. One ran against me, one who identifies as Latino, who ran against me and said some crazy stuff. They are coming again. They are flying at our schools, and look, you can have your beliefs, we can disagree, but the stuff that is coming out of those folks' mouth is toxic. It is meant to cause chaos in our school systems. So I urge you all, please get involved in local school board races. And if it's not in your local area, help out. Funds are needed to fight the MAGA movement here in Santa Clara County. In Santa Clara County, y'all, it's happening. So I want to emphasize that again. They've been organizing at our schools in San Jose Unified. They're in other areas, so please be on the lookout for that. Have people ready to run, be ready to knock on doors, because literacy is at stake. That and our democracy is at stake, because if they can get school board races, then they run for city council, then they run for state assembly, and I can keep going on and on.
Yeah. And I agree with Jose because 2 years ago we had a couple of MAGA candidates, and the things that come out of their mouth and their beliefs it's just And if a school system is not strong enough to push back on some of that, then that our kids are going to be hurt because of that. And even asking for what's your book list, right? We've had public records asks about our book lists, and so I'm so excited when all the books that they wanted to know about were on our list. So I know we're doing the right thing. And then as voters, you are all responsible. I mean, I think to make sure that the candidates that you are voting for hold the values that you do, hold the values of your community. And, one of the things that I'm really concerned about with our new area elections is that if we don't get the right candidate, school boards don't typically have term limits. So you could have someone who is, because part of the intent was to get a Latino school board represent. We could have somebody there for 12, 20 years plus, who then, we're not getting what we worked so hard to get, right? So, and not saying that the candidate would be a good person, but it's also not that takes that seat out for a good 12 to 20 years. So.
I have two things. One, know your down ballot across the board and make sure everyone knows their down ballot, and say like, oh, you don't feel like voting because you don't like anyone who's running for president. That's fine. You actually don't even have to check one of those boxes if you don't want to, but go down and figure out who all those people are, because they make all the decisions about what happens when you walk outside your door, and you want to know that person, and you want the person who represents your values to be there. And that's going to be the very best way to get involved. And then I also wanted to say, we've been talking a lot about elected office, and that is a wonderful option. I encourage it whenever it is possible, but we talked about how it's not possible for everyone too. And there are ways to be leaders in your community that make a massive, massive real difference, that sometimes involve working with your elected leaders. But whatever you can do, whatever your capacity is there, that option that's there for you. And I encourage you to just take that leadership where it comes. And maybe one day you'll end up as an elected official. I mean, I did that and it took 15 years and I ended up being one, but maybe it won't. If you don't want to run for office, great. There's so many ways to get involved. And especially informing everyone you know about your down ballot. You can start there.
Peggy said she wanted to end on a positive note, so I'm going to try to do that. We've talked a lot about how hard it is to run for office, the challenges involved from time, logistics, money, all of that. But I want to say it's one of the most rewarding things you can possibly do. To be able to serve your community, to be able to make your residents' lives better, to be able to point to changes, to initiatives that you've created and say, that's something I got over the finish line. The Human Relations Commission for Alyssa, something that I've done, we're going to be getting a mobile app for the city in the next year and a half or two. I cannot tell you how excited I am going to be able to report abandoned shopping carts on that mobile app, right? Things like that. It is tremendously satisfying. I'm also going to say, get involved. The easiest way to run for office is to start 2 or 4 years in advance. Start by getting involved in your community. Get on local boards like the board for the Democratic Club of the City of Sunnyvale. Start by, showing up, show up and keep showing up. Do leadership Sunnyvale. Hi, Tara. Get involved early. And if you are interested in learning more about running for office, reach out to me. My phone number is 408-940-2495. Give me a text. I am happy to sit down and talk. And anyone who is thinking, who is running, thank you so much. It is a hard path, but the city is better for your work. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the panel. I am going to shortly be introducing the nominating slate. And I just want to let everybody also know that there are so many people in our community that are passionate about this. My leadership, Sunnyvale, just graduated yesterday. Alumni, yes, alumna. Our project was Pipeline of Leaders, right? We are here in Sunnyvale for Equity and Education. We have a subgroup called Leadership Development. You know, all of us, we care about our community. We care about leadership in way more than just elected office, as we said. So please consider being involved and helping us all have a better community together. With that, I want to thank the board and welcome you to join the audience or have conversations wherever, and then I will start talking about the new board. So thank you so much. Okay, so I am running for school board. We all, well, we know that. I know that. I've been talking about it. If you don't know that, I'll give you a card and please donate to my campaign. So that means that I can no longer be on the Democratic Club of Sunnyvale board, which I have enjoyed immensely. And thank you so much to those that invited me on here. It's been such a wonderful experience, and I cannot continue because I am running for elected office. But I have cherished this time. And with that, I am part of the nominating committee. I wanted to make sure that, you know, leadership, pipeline of leadership, that we go on and we continue on doing the work. So I am here to announce the nominating committee for whom I am representing. We have a slate of board positions, and I am going to welcome each of you up to make a statement about 1 minute about why vote for you, why are you here, why continuing on, and then we'll have our election. Okay, so the slate for the nominating committee, we have for President Crystal Wickham, continuing. Vice President, we have Bruce Payton. There you are. Hello. For Secretary Gail Rubino, continuing. We have Treasurer David Newswanger. He was one of my partners in Leadership Sunnyvale. Membership Director Ambrosia Studley. She cannot be here right now, but we do have a video. Political Director, continuing on, Martin Pine. Communications Director Mike Stroney. At large, Tara Martin Milius. And we do have an at-large position available. Hint, hint. All right. So with that, we would love to have the 1 minute statements. Crystal, please.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me? All right. I'm Crystal Wickham, and I am running again for the president role. I've served on the executive board since May 2021, and I was first in an at-large position like Peggy, and then I've served 2 years as president. The last several years have been a time of change for everyone, and as we've emerged from the pandemic, and I really want to thank everyone on the board for all of the work, the great work that you all do, and supporting me as president, because I would not be doing as well without all of the other board members supporting. So especially, you know, helping to put on these hybrid meetings, because it's not easy, and finding speakers and contacting them and getting them to speak. All of that takes a lot of work, and each of the board members are really great at doing that. So I do feel like the club is in a strong position now, and I would like to continue on the board and as president. And I encourage all of you voting to vote for the entire slate. We've got a great group of candidates. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bruce Payton. I've been serving for several months now as club vice president. I've been a board member and long-term volunteer at Leadership Sunnyvale. Pleased to watch very strong group of leaders graduate yesterday. I've also been very active in sustainability issues. I currently chair the County Sustainability Commission, brand new commission. My focus for joining the board here is really to focus on building the pipeline. We've made huge progress in terms of moving to district voting, but that system is only as strong as the pipeline of candidates that we develop. And so I really would like us to be focusing on ways to find candidates, particularly folks who speak in voices that we haven't heard enough in the community. So I join Crystal in endorsing that entire slate of people.
I'm coming to you, Gail, and then David.
Hi, I'm Gail Rubino. I don't have any prepared remarks. It's like the Oscars, I guess. I'm a what is it called? I'm a Blue Dog Democrat, and I want to make I actually secretly want to make the club bigger because there's a lot of Democrats that don't come to the club. I'm and I try to be a good secretary, and I appreciate your support.
I'm going in the order. So I'm coming to David, and then we'll hear from Ambush. No, it's you. It's you. You're on. You go, David.
Well, speaking of imposters, as we were before, that would be me, because I've only been a member of the club for less than a year. At any rate, I'm David Newswanger. I'm a retired pediatric anesthesiologist and chair of the anesthesia department. I had 100 employees and a budget of 26 million, which Peggy says is more than what the club here has. So maybe I can handle it. My history is that when I went to college, I registered as a Democrat. But when Ronald Reagan ran for president, I re-registered as a Republican because I wanted to vote against him. And then I stayed a Republican for decades because I liked fiscal responsibility. But can I say I was pissed off? Is that, yeah, by something Mitch McConnell did about 5 years ago. And right there on my iPads, registered as independent, then later to Democrat. So that's my history. So I am a bit of an imposter, but okay. Anyway.
Ambrosia Online, Martin, Mike, and Tara. Okay. I'm sorry. We'll do Ambrosia at the end. So Martin.
Hi, I'm Martin. I'm running for re-election as your political director. This is an election year. We have a lot of work to do to find who the best as previously mentioned, get the best candidates to run. Also to when we have good candidates, to make sure they get elected. And my campaign pledge is that I will do everything in my power to make sure that the candidates that the club view, that at least in the club's view, are the best, to do what we can to do what we can as a club to get them elected.
Okay, Mike Cerrone, Communications Director.
I think I can be quick. I've been Mike Cerrone, Communications Director. I've been on the board for a long time now, practically from the beginning of the club, as President, Membership Director, originally Director of New Media, which at that time was anything that involved the internet, which was a kind of a new thing. We weren't sure what to do with it. Now I'm happy to contribute a lot of different ways. So I'm still doing the updating the website and doing some of the Facebook posts. So it's a privilege to be associated with the Democratic Club, and looking forward to another year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Tara Martin Milius, and I'm an at-large representative for the club. And I appreciate that role a lot since it gives me tremendous flexibility, and that's important. So I have appreciated very much the Dems Club since before I became a Democrat. So yeah, and so because everything that has been done here has been done with the intent to better educate people. And education is absolutely something that I am very, very supportive of and believe strongly as one of the foundations for our democracy. So I would appreciate a vote going forward. I would very much like to continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. We have Ambrosia Studley on the slate for membership director, and then I want to remind you all that there is an open at-large position, and you may self-nominate or nominate somebody else for that position. Thank you.
All right, this is Ambrosia's statement. She was unable to be here, and I hope this works. We're going to find out.
Of the state capitol, thanks to Senator Dave Cortez, Sacramento West for education. I have 3 kids, 4th grade, 7th grade, and 10th grade, and have been a parent leader and volunteer for over 10 years now at the Sunnyvale School District. So public education is important to me. I'm also a board member on the Sunnyvale Education Foundation. I'm interested in supporting the Sunnyvale Democratic Club in
Yeah, work to have the microphone right there.
I don't know if it worked or not. But those online were and it was.
It was a little hard to hear online, but I kind of hear
I
it.
could hear it. I could hear it online.
Okay.
We couldn't hear it in the room.
We couldn't hear it. And there was some feedback too. Should we try it again? The same way? Okay. All right, we're just going to try it again.
My name is Amanda Stubbs. This is a picture of me, May 15th, in front of the state capitol, thanks to Senator Dave Cortez, Sacramento West for education. I have 3 kids, 4th grade, 7th grade, and 10th grade, and have been a parent leader and volunteer for over 10 years now at the Sunnyvale School District. So, public education is important. I'm also a board member on the Sunnyvale Education Foundation. I'm interested in supporting the Sunnyvale Democratic Club on the board, and as membership director, have me because I want to be a part of nurturing democratic values. I've lived here for about 17 years now, and I want our community to know we can all have a say in local government, that our elected officials are real people like us and want our endorsement as their constituents, as well as our feedback. Our democracy is only as strong as our participation. And this is me trying a little bit. Thanks for your consideration, and I look forward to chatting more in person.
For those of you in the room, were you able to read that? Okay. Would you like me to read the captions out loud or okay. All right. Are there any nominations for that large position? Or any other positions? You're right. Yes, sorry. Online or in person? Okay, we're going to go ahead and leave that open and vote on the rest of the slate. So again, we have for President Crystal Wickham, Vice President Bruce Payton, Secretary Gail Rubino, Treasurer David Newswanger, Membership Director Ambrosia Studley, Political Director Martin Pine, Communications Director Mike Cerrone, and at large Tara Martin Milius. You have a link as well as a QR code online. In person, we have paper ballots, or you may use the QR code. And while we are counting ballots, we'll have some announcements.
All right, I have the paper ballots here. If we'd prefer that you vote online if you're eligible. But if you need a paper ballot, please deliver it to Sandy Spires here in the room.
Excuse me?
Yes, online.
Yes, I had my hand raised. I don't know if it's too late, but I'd like to put my name in for the at-large director.
Oh, fantastic. This is Julia Miller.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
We're running the vote as with Julia Miller.
They'll have to add it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There are pins over there in the box. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta do a ballot with a QR code. Wow.
Yes. Mara, could you put the link in the chat, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Since we just got a nomination for the second at large spot, how is that reflected in the balloting? Because the ballot I have in front of me doesn't have a.
Can we
So
vote in the second round? Because I actually just already submitted my vote.
It updated already on the ballot while I was entering it online.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Do I need to revote then?
I would try scanning the QR code again and see.
Hotels and family and brand for the hotel for any traveler you want to be. Like number one chef dad cooking up a free hot breakfast for the entire family in a comfort hotel. I added the garnish. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Jerry goes off grid almost every weekend, but now a Friday last minute meeting, Otter has Jerry covered with an AI meeting assistant to take notes and capture action items. So Jerry can go camping and be ready for Monday. Sign up for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
Aquasana gave us more than just clean, healthy water. Gave us more space in the fridge, more room in the recycling, carbon footprint, ultimate peace of mind. Now up to 50% off at aquasana.com.
Guys, how wait, there's too tight here, too loose there, too long there. Standard jeans use just two measurements. Your phone can measure.
Julia, you might want to mute yourself because your television's coming through.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Gail.
It's Leia, but that's all right.
Okay. So this is probably a gauche announcement to have while we're actually voting on a board election. But if you reelect me as political director, I will be running the city council endorsement meeting for June 22nd. So if you have things that you might want to see incorporated in the questionnaire, please email board@sunnyvaledems.org. And the board does not, well, if elected, the board does not promise to incorporate every single thing because we have only so much time for endorsement interviews, but getting input from the club on what you would like to see incorporated in the interviews and the written questionnaire is very helpful. So if you have questions for city council candidates, send them to the board. If you have questions that you'd like to see candidates for other offices, also feel free to send that to the board. It will get noted and used when we do endorsements for those later in the summer.
All right, thank you. Is everyone able to access the ballot either in person or online? Are there any concerns there? I am also going to vote.
Did you vote? Not yet. I'm standing in line. So you're going to go, you're very close. This. Yeah.
All right, and as the election is progressing, I would like to invite others to come up and give any announcements if there are announcements. If you have an announcement while the election is going, we can do that.
I think this works, or you can use the Skype.
Hello, everyone. Naomi Nakano Matsumoto again with the Fremont Union High School District Board. Okay, just wanted to say thank you to all the support from this club. As you know, FUHSD passed the by-trustee area issue and then adopted MAP 5R. And then it went to the county committee on Monday last week. They approved it unanimously. So now it's to the register of voters. So we will have formally two candidates or two areas that will be open for election this year. So thank you for all of your individual and collective help.
Other announcements?
Anyone in this room still voting directly? Please try.
Where's the camera pointing? Hey everybody, Doug Kunz, and I'm gearing up to run for the Cupertino Union School District's Board of Trustees. So looking forward to putting a lot of the wisdom that was discussed today into effect, hopefully. So just wanted to say for folks who are living in the Cupertino Union School District, who are part of the club, hope to have your support in November. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. And here's the council member Melgar.
Council member hat is very much off for this one. I would like to, so my very good friend, Charles C. Chang, she can't be here today, but she is having her campaign kickoff for Sunnyvale District 4 tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Indian Tadka Restaurant, Tadka. You can RSVP at bit.ly/Charlesy, CHARLSIE kickoff, and hope to see folks there. I will be there. She's a fantastic candidate and so excited to see her running.
Thank you.
What's my name? Charles C. Chang. Yeah.
Okay, hi, it's me again. It's Peggy Shen Brewster. I am running for trustee area 4 in the Sunnyvale School District. If you are not already on my mailing list, or if you would like to add your support with an endorsement, testimonial, or to volunteer for my campaign, from what we have just heard, there will be much need for you. And if you would also like to donate, I would very much appreciate that. So my website is electpeggy.com. Take a look. Let me know if you want. There's links to, there's buttons where you can donate. There's buttons where you can sign up onto the mailing list and volunteer to help out. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, I would love to talk to you about education here in Sunnyvale and hear your perspectives. Thank you so much for your support.
All right, any other announcements? I do have some, I'm going to share the screen again. All right, I do see Julia with her hand raised. Go ahead,
Yes.
Julia.
Thank you. I wanted Richard to say which District 4 candidate slot is open, please. I'm out of connection there. Who is District 4? That's
Hi, Julia. The candidate in question is Charles C. Chang, who is running the only registered candidate for the seat as of this moment. The District 4 seat is currently held by Russ Melton, who is termed out and is running for mayor.
fantastic. That's exactly what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Where does this?
Can stop sharing. You can see it better. All right, I see Larry Klein. Mayor Klein, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to do two announcements. One of which is, of course, Thursday is the all-day budget workshop. So if residents want to give final comments, they have until Thursday morning Wednesday afternoon to send in emails. And of course, Thursday morning, we will be starting at 8:30 a.m. if you want to show up and give in-person public comment. And then, of course, I'll do, I am running for mayor again. I'll be seeing everybody next month. But if you want to sign up to the campaign, go to larryformayor.com. And, if you want to endorse, if you want to donate, if you want to get more involved, I'm always available. Or just reach out to me as always, larry@larryklein.com. I'm still available on my weekly office hours and all that. But we'll be hearing more. You'll be hearing more from me next month. Thanks. See you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I just want to confirm everyone who is eligible to vote and wants to vote has voted. We're planning to close the ballot very shortly. I see none in the room. I see none online. It's okay to close the ballot. Oh, and yes, Sandy is still putting paper ballots in. So Mara, not yet. All right, and Mayor Klein, your hand is still raised. I'm assuming it's not something new.
Lowering it now.
Okay. All right, and I do have some announcements on the screen. So upcoming Democratic Club meetings, as mentioned previously, June 22nd is our next general meeting, and we'll have the mayoral and city council endorsements. It will be hybrid again. Then July 27th, everyone mark your calendars for the summer picnic at Ponderosa Park. That will be, of course, in person. And the book club still meeting. Mike, do you have any new book recommendations?
Actually, we are meeting tomorrow, and this time we're not doing a book. We're doing a number of articles on the what's going on in Israel and Gaza. So it should be an interesting discussion. And then we do have a book in June, but I can't remember the title of it right now. So, but we'll be posting that on the website.
Okay, thank you. So there's also, I announced last time, there was a event, Code Red for Humanity, and there is now the video, which is available if you missed it, and also a website. We'll publish this on the club website. There's also what Peggy mentioned, a video from Isabel. There's a link to it here. We'll also be publishing that online. And it's very germane to the topics that were discussed today by the panel. Mayor Klein already mentioned the budget workshop. There's also on the May 21st agenda, there is a resolution for council's discussion, which will be to suspend portions of the all-electric new construction reach code, and that is this coming Tuesday. And then the budget adoption is planned for June 18th, and the climate action playbook revision adoption is planned for June 25th. All right, Sandy and Mara are our elections committee, and they're tabulating the votes. What's our estimated time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, you said?
3 minutes. I'm almost done.
Okay, thank you, Mara. She said 3 minutes she needs. Yeah. All right, in 3 minutes, we will have a result.
All right. For President, Crystal Wickham, the candidate got 29 ballots, 0 no endorsements, 0 abstain. And so that is 96.67 of the valid ballots. You should know we had one person that had a ballot that was not valid, it had the wrong number. So that's the only thing we've got going, and it's consistent throughout all of the ballots. Vice President Bruce Patton, candidate votes 28, no endorsement 1, no abstain. So that is 93.33%. Congratulations. Treasurer David Newswanger, 28 votes for the candidate, 1 for no endorsement, 0 for abstain. Again, that is 29 votes, valid votes, 93%. Secretary Gail Rubino, 29 votes for candidate, 0 for no endorsement, 0 for abstain. So that is again pretty. It says 97%. So I think it's because of the other one. Anyway, also for Martin Pine, 29 votes, 0 for no endorsement, 0 abstain. And Mike Cerrone, also 29 ballots for the candidate, 0 for no endorsement, 0 abstain. Ambrosia Studley, 28 votes for the candidate, 1 for no endorsement, 0 for abstain. Director at large for Tara Martin Milius, 27 votes for the candidate, 1 for no endorsement, 1 for abstain. That's still over 90%. Director at large Julia Miller, we have 15 votes for the candidate, 5 for no endorsement, 6 for abstain. And that is it. And I believe we need Martin, what is the minimum requirement for voting someone in?
Okay, the Okay, first of all, I will note that I only can advise the elections committee, but I am not a member of the elections committee, and therefore I cannot actually make a decision. However, it is my interpretation of the bylaws that a quorum having registered their ballots, it is my recollection of the bylaws. I do not have the bylaws in front of me right now. So if someone pulls them up and they say something else, then they say something else. But it is my recollection of the bylaws that it is only a simple majority required to elect of those who registered a vote, so long as a quorum has registered their presence. So that was me being a technical dork. By voting, I mean they voted yes or they voted no. By present, I mean they voted yes, they voted no, or they abstained, which means, hi, I'm here, but don't have an opinion, yes or no. This is not the California legislature. An abstention is not a negative vote.
Okay, because I had in one of my forms a 60% vote. That was the total minus abstain. So I wanted to
So for a club, where I suspect that comes from is for the club to endorse a candidate, that candidate must receive 60%. But this is not the club endorsing a candidate. This is the club electing a board. So
okay, then that's great. Then we have 50%. And so I think that's good.
All right. Thank you, Mara. And thank you to all the candidates and everyone who cast a vote. We will now close the meeting a few minutes late. And thank you all for joining. And we'll see you at next month's endorsement meeting.